Here are some of the top stories that you might have missed last week. Let's go. Today we're going to be talking about the apparent hospital bombing hoax in Gaza, a new report finding a correlation between young Andrew Tate fans and misogyny, Sidney Powell pleads guilty in the Georgia election interference case, Britney Spears claims that she was pressured into an abortion by Justin Timberlake, and much more, so let's go ahead and get into it. If you haven't heard of the American model Gigi Hadid, she shared a series of pro-Palestinian pictures on Instagram, which led to the Israeli government's official Instagram account calling her out. Gigi shared a story on her Instagram page that said, "There is nothing Jewish about the Israeli government's treatment of Palestinians. Condemning the Israeli government is not anti-Semitic, and supporting Palestinians is not supporting Hamas." This post led to the official account of the State of Israel to respond to her by saying, "Have you been sleeping this past week, Gigi? Or are you just fine-tuning a blind eye to Jewish babies being butchered in their homes? Your silence has been very clear about where you stand. We see you." According to this article, they also shared their version of the graphic, similar to Ms. Hadid's, where they drew comparisons between ISIS and Hamas. There's nothing violent about Hamas's massacre of Israelis. Condemning Hamas for what it is, ISIS, is not anti-Palestine, and supporting Israelis in their fight against barbaric terrorists is the right thing to do. The government of Israel also shared a picture of a room covered in blood with toys and children's clothing on the floor. They added, "If you don't condemn this, your words mean nothing." However, to be fair, prior to Gigi's post, she did in fact condemn Hamas in her prior post, and she responded to Israel's comments by stating on her Instagram that she sympathizes with both sides and she's against violence towards any innocent person. Now, following this little exchange, others thought that it was unnecessary and petty of Israel to comment on her post at all, with others applauding Israel for calling her out. So, what do you think? Do you think that Israel should have called it out, or should they have just stayed out of it and stayed out of the social media drama? Go ahead and let me know what you think down below. And Sidney Powell, the former lawyer of Donald Trump, pleaded guilty in the Georgia election interference case, which could have some significant ramifications. Former Trump attorney Sidney Powell pleaded guilty to 6 misdemeanor charges in a Fulton County courthouse in Georgia on Thursday. As part of her guilty plea, Powell is admitting her role in the January 2021 breach of election systems in rural Coffee County, Georgia. With the help of local GOP officials, a group of Trump supporters accessed and copied information from the county's election systems in hopes of somehow proving that the election was rigged against Trump. Fulton County prosecutors are recommending a sentence of 6 years probation. Powell will also be required to testify at future trials, write an apology letter to the citizens of Georgia, pay nearly $9,000 in restitution and fines, and turn over documents. Now, some people believe that this is just a stunt to make Trump look bad, and others believe that this is just the start of the fall of Donald Trump. But it does seem that it's a little too early to know exactly what this means for Donald Trump and if Sidney Powell will be testifying against Trump or not. But only time will tell. And we also need to talk about Andrew Tate, because a new report came out suggesting a data correlation in young Andrew Tate fans and misogyny. This article says that the report delves into the influence of Tate's content on shaping the perspectives of children and relationships. Women's AIDS findings underline the adverse effects to exposure to misogynistic content, including the development of more harmful perceptions of relationships and increased tolerance for harmful behavior. For instance, 31% of children and young people exposed to Tate's content agreed that there should always be one more dominant person in a relationship, compared to the 14% who felt similarly among those who hadn't encountered such content. The Women's Aid report also indicates that problematic and potentially abusive behaviors like love bombing were acceptable to those who had seen content similar to Tate's. 25% of the group believe that it is romantic for the person you're going out with to constantly buy you loads of gifts and randomly turn up everywhere you go, in contrast to only 13% of the non-exposed youth. Furthermore, the report suggests that young people exposed to Tate's or similar misogynistic content were more likely to adhere to gendered stereotypes. In this group, 61% agreed that women are naturally more caring in a relationship, whereas only 52% of young people who hadn't been exposed to such content believe this. Now, as Christians, some believe that Tate appealing to traditional gender roles in relationships is biblical and it's a good thing, but others are worried about his other takes that he has on women, such as this one that he made during the pandemic when he said,
"The reason women need a man to do OnlyFans is the same reason a woman need a man to do anything, because they're incompetent and they're very, very lazy. And they're stupid."
But what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that the good outweighs the bad when it comes to Tate? Or do you believe that there's simply better voices out there for young people to listen to? Now, Britney Spears is back in the news as she revealed that she had an abortion with Justin Timberlake when she was young. Britney Spears is sharing a painful experience she's kept private for 20 years. In her upcoming memoir, The Woman in Me, the pop icon reveals that when she dated Justin Timberlake, she became pregnant with his baby but had an abortion. It was a surprise, but for me, it wasn't a tragedy. I love Justin so much. I always expected us to have a family together one day. This would just be much earlier than I anticipated. But Justin definitely wasn't happy about the pregnancy. He said we weren't ready to have a baby in our lives and that we were too young. If it had been left up to me alone, I wouldn't have done it. And yet Justin was so sure that he didn't want to be a father. To this day, it's one of the most agonizing things I've ever experienced in my life. However, some fans were quick to defend Timberlake. Are people about to ignore that this was a mutual decision? Two consenting adults made a joint decision about what was best for them at that period in their lives. I see no issue. Those choices are deeply personal matters that should not be for public debate or judgment. Justin Timberlake spent 2 decades trashing Britney every chance he got. She kept her head down, and the first time she actually tells her truth, he wants her to grow up. This is why people hate men. Now, it's clear that Britney was culpable for going through with the abortion, but how much fault do you think that Justin has in this situation? I'm curious what you guys think, so leave your thoughts down below. And on the other side of the world, last week the world was outraged behind what was said to be an Israeli airstrike on a hospital that reportedly left 500 Palestinians deceased. Once the story came out, people everywhere were outraged, with the media and politicians condemning Israel for the attack. Rashida Tlaib tweeted, "Israel just bombed the Baptist hospital, killing 500 Palestinians. Doctors, children, patients, just like that." POTUS, this is what happens when you refuse to facilitate a ceasefire and help de-escalate. Your war and destruction only approach has opened my eyes and many Palestinian Americans and Muslim Americans like me. We will remember where you stood. Shortly after the airstrike, the Palestinian ambassador even said that he was certain that this was an Israeli airstrike, despite new evidence coming out suggesting that it wasn't.
I'm an ambassador, I'm an official, and I tell you with certainty, this was an Israeli airstrike.
Now, as it stands at the time of recording, photos showed that the hospital was not actually hit, rather only the parking lot of the hospital was hit. And of course, this puts significant doubt to the number of 500 casualties that were initially reported in Gaza. In addition, there was also not a crater as we would expect if the rocket came from Israel, and also there was apparent audio and video evidence of the strike that also seems to suggest that the rocket came from within Gaza rather than from Israel. Now, in response to this, Al Jazeera put out a video a few days ago arguing that the rocket still came from inside of Israel based on the video footage, but at the time of this recording, they haven't yet explained the other circumstantial evidence, such as the lack of a significant crater at the impact site. Now, this war comes at a troubling time in human history in which information is distributed so wide and far before it's even confirmed. Now we're given a chance to see just how problematic this can be, given how emotionally charged and on edge everybody is about this situation. And so what we don't need is false information adding more fuel to the fire, because when it does, the anger remains even when the facts are cleared up. But one thing to remember is that in these confusing times, we don't have to have everything figured out. What we as Christians have to do is to remember to pray and keep our eyes on loving God and our neighbor. That means that we're loving not only those that agree with us, but also those that don't agree with us. Now, this is the first of a weekly segment that I'm planning on releasing each week, where I cover the week's main news stories to keep you in the loop. So let me know if you like it, so that way we know to keep it going. All right? See you guys next time. Oh, what do you mean?